Okay, we seem to have a forum of the commission members, so I am going to call the meeting to order. Today is November 6th, 7:02 p.m. This is Wakefield's Commission on Disabilities. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Before we start, we're going to pledge allegiance to the flag. Thank you, Lorna. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to go right to public participation / presentation from the Horsley Witten Group regarding the open space. So if those that are speaking would just please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Krista Moravec. I am a planner at Horsley Witten Group. And with me is my colleague, Kelly, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. I'm an environmental planner with Horsley Witten Group, helping on the open space and recreation plan update. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you both.
Yeah.
Okay, so I probably need to share with one of you.
Yeah, I'll run the presentation. We have a very short one.
Okay.
I did see Bill come on and then he left.
Yeah,
so
I thought he was here too.
Something must have happened. And but we're working with some folks from town. Pardon me, I'm just gonna get myself a little organized here. So we're working with so Judy Green, who is on the Conservation Commission, and then different town staff to update the Wakefield's Open Space and Recreation Plan. And I do have a short presentation just to give an overview of what the plan is and the ADA self-evaluation that's a component of it.
Okay, so I'm going to...
Okay,
I'm gonna...
So I think maybe if you make me a co-host,
yes,
that gives me the power. Oh, there's Judy.
I see Judy. I don't see Bill.
He came and left. So I'll just start that.
Yeah, Bill wasn't sure he would be able to stay.
Oh,
but
okay.
He'd given his comments already.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So I just wanted to kind of cover some basics of the open space and recreation plan. And if some of you have seen this, I apologize, but it's just to kind of give us some background, particularly for those who might watch this meeting later. So the open space and recreation plan, it is, so it talks about open space and recreation. And for open space, we like to sort of, define it in this regard because a lot of times it can mean different things in different contexts and people use it in different ways. But for an open space and recreation plan, we are talking about public and private land that is undeveloped, and it has the opportunity to provide access to nature. It can be used for water protection, or it has habitat protection, but so it has some sort of conservation or recreational value. It doesn't necessarily have to have public access. Sometimes we look at open space, might be opportunities to think about its protection, and you don't necessarily have to have public access for that, but it's generally land that is undeveloped and it has some conservation or recreational value. So outdoor recreational facilities, I think this is a little more intuitive. So our courts, our fields, has some sort of facility on them. We can, maybe the trail, paved trails. So anything that has some sort of structure to it. So those are the two sort of entities that we're thinking about in the open space and recreation plan. So why does a town have one? So we want to make sure, so we're planners, so we want to make sure that we're thinking about needs of the community. So we want to make sure that that the benefits of these resources are maintained, and that we enhance them. So we make sure that they're here for us today and in the future. The plan helps guide local decision-making to around open space, natural resource, and recreational issues. And really, this plan can also be used to support funding efforts. So the Division of Conservation Services is the lead state agency that kind of has, I guess, oversight of the open space and recreation plan. So when we develop the plan, we submit it to the DCS for review. And they have grant funding that is available for communities to purchase open space for recreational conservation value. So they require you have a current open space and recreation plan in order to be eligible for that funding. So it keeps the town eligible for funding for that particular source, but also in general, the plan has an action plan, as I'll go over in another slide, but so it really kind of shows, you know, when you're applying for other types of funding that you've kind of gone through this public process and people are, the community's in support of it.
Krista, could you tell me what that division name again is? Because I'm taking notes.
It's absolutely Division of Conservation Services.
Thank you.
And please feel free to, sometimes I talk very quickly, so please wave and I'll repeat, not a problem. So DCS has its requirements of what it likes to see in the plan, what it wants in the plan, and there are 11 sections, which we won't go over, but I just wanted to highlight a few that sort of are the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the plan. So there's a community snapshot that talks about demographics and who lives in town, what are the conditions of living in town, infrastructure and those types of things, water and sewer, transportation, and those elements similar to what you might find in a master plan. It has inventories of environmental resources, so thinking about your wetlands, your water bodies, forested areas. It also inventories all the open space and recreational resources. So as I mentioned, it's public and private. So we kind of look at all of the private entities, like perhaps recreation, might be a golf course or campgrounds or things like that. So we inventory those. We look at Chapter 61 lands, which are lands that are sort of go through the tax program. They might be there for open space or forestry or agriculture. So we kind of go through the gamut of all the different resources. And then the town's resources, if there are state resources in town. So that all that inventory is a pretty hefty piece. We have a needs section. So we talk about natural resource protection needs. What are the community needs around these types of resources? And then needs for management needs. So those are the needs of the town, and what do they need to sort of maintain and keep these places accessible or maintained and updated and have consistent upkeep. There are goals and objectives around those needs to make sure that, how do we meet them? And then they set a 7-year action plan. So these plans are updated every 7 years in this cycle. And that's how they are maintained current, is that 7-year cycle. One of the key components, which is why we're here talking with you this evening, is an ADA self-evaluation, which is also part of this plan. And I will circle back to that because there are specific some specific direction on that, but I just wanted to touch on our process through this, just so you are aware. So we start with, we take a plan that's existing and we kind of review anything that has happened to date since that plan, new data sources, new inventories. We do a public workshop. We ask about community needs, and we had done one in Wakefield in the spring, and I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on when we did that, but we did one in this past spring. We put together a draft of the plan. We're working on the draft of the plan. We also did a community survey that was out over the summer. So we have some input from that. Our next event will we kind of put together our ideas around needs and how to address them. And we'll have another public event to ask the community, did we get this right? So we're having a meeting coming up and sort of talking about when that event will happen. And then we distribute the plan for comment and support. The DCS would like us to get, they call them letters of support from the select board, from the planning board, and the regional planning council for Wakefield. And then we submitted to DCS and for their review and approval. But circling back to the evaluation that we were doing, the ADA self-evaluation. So according, DCS outlines their requirements in their what it's called their workbook. So this gives us direction on what they expect in the plan, but also in this evaluation. So we are only looking at properties that are under the jurisdiction of the recreational body, the recreation department, and the conservation commission. So very specific. So it's not school properties or properties that are not under these two entities, but specifically focusing on them. We have a sheet that we use to go out and has a lot of elements to it related to accessibility. We use that as part of our evaluation. We had gone out on varying points. We went out in January, did some follow-up in August, and then most recently, we had to go back to a couple of sites just last month. But we have together our plan in draft form. And so we take I guess, points that need to be addressed to improve accessibility, and we create our transition plan, which are some recommendations for structural changes. So some physical changes to sites to make them more accessible. We have a draft plan, which I think you all had. It was distributed I want to say, and Kelly, you can remind me, I think it was not last month, but maybe in September, it was sent out. And so that is draft. And our hope is to meet with you all and get some input on priorities and feedback on that. And I know that the town is also working on sort of they have been addressing accessibility. They want to address accessibility. So we want to make sure we're incorporating all the pieces to that. So these are the sites that we visited. Well, I shouldn't say we, I should say my colleagues visited 24 of them. And we had some, overall, we had found some common needs around all of them. So parking spaces, particularly around signage and striping, and accessing those particular sites. So there were many instances of that. We also found that a lot of surfaces, walkways, the need for better surfaces, paths to features on the site, if it's benches or picnic tables, so making sure that while they have these sites on these amenities on the site, the pathway may not necessarily be accessible. Benches, do they have enough armrests or backrests? Again, their location, or how accessible are they from a walkway? And then playgrounds, just thinking about the surfaces that are within the playgrounds and access to them, from either if it's a parking or a walkway, making sure that is a common, also is a common finding that just there might not have been the best access to them. And I just want to pause there because it was kind of a lot of information. And I feel like maybe if I can pause and if there's any questions about the open space and recreation plan in general, and maybe the ADA evaluation, I actually, if, Kelly, if you wanted to chime in and sort of correct me or fill in anything that I may have missed, please feel free to do that. But I mean, I'll pause and just open it up if there are any questions. And I'm trying.
Janice, and I had a question about the playgrounds. You're doing the access to the playground elements and the surfaces.
Yes.
Are you looking at the actual play facilities on the playgrounds or not? Are you looking at the swings and to see if there are accessible playground apparatus?
Equipment, right. Kelly,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So was that yes, Krista, wasn't clear? You are looking at the apparatus as well?
Krista, I can chime in on that. In the context of the worksheets that we use based on those guidelines, the site is evaluated. We do look at the specific, like equipment, but it's evaluated in the context of, does anyone who goes to that particular facility, do they have kind of equal opportunities to play? Are there I'm forgetting what the exact wording is, but are there opportunities for everyone to use those equipment? Do folks have similar experiences? So we're not necessarily like looking at a swing and I guess I think I'll leave it there.
So if you look at a swing set, there might be I think on the Nacella playground there were several regular strap swings on the right, and then there were the bucket swings on the left that would be more for smaller children. I didn't see any swings that had backrests. So okay. would you evaluate something like that and say there is not an opportunity here? There is not an equal opportunity here for children to use these swings because we don't have all of the equipment that would be needed for everybody to be able to use the swing.
Yes, that would be noted.
You would be, okay, great, thank you.
And I know that a lot of work that's happening, we're also thinking about universal design and features that may not necessarily, the evaluation and the worksheet are very much focused on dimensions and all of those types of more structural components that are related to the act. But I think thinking more broadly about access and inclusiveness at some of these facilities, we're also thinking about sort of the term universal design, and are there other elements that can make that can be more inviting for, people have different abilities, if it's different cognitive abilities or things like that. So may not necessarily have a dimension or something like that we measure, or a type of surface, but just thinking about some other features that perhaps we can think about at some of the sites to have an opportunity there. Maybe not every site. And I think that's also another thing to think about is, we're not looking to make every site accessible, but to think about where can we make improvements? And if this site isn't accessible for a particular use, is it accessible somewhere else? So looking at the sites as a whole and what are the opportunities available. I know there are specific requirements for ADA related to funding and what funding was used on a particular site. So we want to be mindful of that as well. But those are some of the things that we're also thinking about when we look at some of these sites.
When you are looking at parking spaces, however, my assumption is that you will be making those have to be accessible. You have to provide accessible parking spaces.
Right. There are a certain number of spots that need to, based on the number of parking spaces in a lot, there have to be those that are accessible, and then they have the proper signage and the striping. And I think those are common things that we've noted. But also, I mean, those are also sort of hopefully kind of common things that we can sort of, we can address on a, if we develop our action plan, are those some of the things that we can sort of tackle early, depending on what it is. So, but parking is one. If it's enough, a van site, has striping for vans, all of those things. So all those features we are looking at. And what I thought we could do, so I'm going to switch to, I'm not sure if I was sharing just the PowerPoint. But we put together a summary, a draft transition plan that lists all of the findings. So all of the sort of issues or barriers that we saw at the sites we visited, and some potential actions to remove some of those barriers. And I think our intent is to prioritize those based on, we can identify if there's a particular, if it's sites that people use a lot that are really popular, we want to prioritize those sites. Or if there are projects in the works that we already know that town has got plans and they're going to do them, and what have you. So I just, has everyone had a chance to look at the plan or not? Yep, I see some nods. Okay. So I'm going to reshare because I just wanted to make sure that, so this is sort of I pulled this out of the actual report itself, and this is the transition plan. And what I thought, we're making just a recommendation of how we could potentially prioritize these sites. A top priority would be the town is already, they know this site, they have plans in the works to address this site. It's widely used, it has a lot of amenities. This site is a priority to address the issues on that site. So that would get a 1. A 2 would be the town recognizes that there are improvements at the site, and it will develop plans, so it knows that it needs to address them. It's still a really popular site, and it has a lot of amenities. So that would sort of be our second priority. It knows it needs to get plans. It's going to be doing them. Our third ranking, so just our next step down, is that, we recognize these improvements need to be made, but we really just don't have, the town does not have, I say we, but the town doesn't have any plans at the moment to address that site. So we're, it's not a priority at this time just because it doesn't have those plans, but it should. And then there are sites, some of the conservation areas, sometimes making them more accessible, just has low or limited opportunities. It might be the terrain of the site is hard to make a level pathways, or the site might be really wet in general. And really it's difficult for all users just with the conditions at that site. So those sites we probably wouldn't be able to make accessible. There might not be any spaces for parking, but we need to look at it from a larger perspective, what's next door too. So those would be some of the sites that perhaps either very low priority or very limited opportunities to make them more accessible. But I think we should still try to find some conservation areas or natural areas that we want to make accessible, because again, we want to find opportunity, that type of experience for everyone to be able to have that. So those are just something to think about, and we still need to kind of follow up with that. But I think with you all tonight, I think we would be interested in sort of what sites are priority for you. Are there things that you particularly want us to sort of prioritize? Are there, even if are there good examples that we should be looking at in other communities? Types of features that are offered, types of places that you think are good examples to help us lean on as well. I'm always interested in where you see things that the town is doing a really good job. But I can kind of walk through some of these sites if that's helpful. Or if someone had something they want to bring up before we kind of walk through that. I also want to be mindful of your time as well. I know you have other items on your agenda.
You just throw up the list of 24 sites again? Is that easy enough to do, or do you have to switch PowerPoint?
Yep. It was 24.
24, yep. Thanks.
That's okay.
I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've already discussed here in some of our meetings.
That would be wonderful. I would really appreciate that.
So actually, just recently, we were talking about the accessible picnic table. So I was really happy to see that on the plans because that's come to our attention as well. The JJ Round path, it basically doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't lead to the benches. It doesn't lead to the playground. So that's been on our radar and being discussed. I did notice that for the Maple Way playground, I didn't see anything about the pathway leading from the parking area to the playground. And that was something that we've been targeting here because as I recall, it's wood chips. It's very difficult for a wheelchair, a walker, crutches, a cane. So those are three of the things, in addition to playground equipment, that this committee has been discussing.
And I will jump in, and I think it was Bill at the last steering committee meeting raised those points to us. So we have those as notes for edits to the transition plan to send back out to you folks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, great. And then Paul had requested to see those 24 sites again.
I think I was not sharing the actual screen. I was sharing the which maybe.
Oh, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had shared the monitor
no.
and I transitioned it and it didn't pop up. Thank you for letting me know.
Thanks. That's terrific.
You're welcome.
Could I ask where Bellinger Park is?
Which one?
Bellinger Park.
Number 1 on the list.
Oh, Bellinger Park.
It's at the head of the lake, right before the culvert as you turn towards Lovell Street. It's a little triangle of land. There's a bench on it now. Right before you come up to the stop sign.
So like where that.
So the area to where Judy had suggested we need a little bit of work to make it accessible, right, Bill?
So we had been talking about the area that has the little playground at the top of the lake.
Right.
I think that's more the Conley Park.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. But then
I don't know where this Bellinger Park is either, Dan. I was thinking the same thing.
Unless
where is that?
On the hedge and put up a black fence like?
It was described in that report. I'm trying to.
Yeah, Dan, that's exactly where it is.
Right.
Where that black fence is.
I know who it's probably named after, but.
Oh yeah.
The Conley Park is the one with the smaller playground and the little beach area that we used to swim in years ago. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we had talked about maybe an accessible picnic table in that area.
That would be great, especially with the new development going in, with all those apartments going in and that whole area being developed. It would be great to have. There might be more people that are grabbing something to eat at that little store they're putting in there and going over to the bench.
Putting in some pathways.
I have to see what the actual spelling is. I think it's a Connelly, not a Connolly.
Very good. Thank you. We'll make that correction.
And also, I don't see Bellinger Park in the draft report. You have each of the items identified by number and a description of where it's located. And that's one I don't see unless I'm scrolling.
Both Bellinger Park and Patty Heights Park were our October site visits that we wrapped up.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, we will. We've added those, right? Okay. I know I was trying to manage how many versions had gone out. So we will add those. Thank you, Kelly.
And the other one is Spring Street Park, which I unless that's where the Yule School is.
No, it's behind the nursing home off of Spring Street. Bathall Street, it's down the very end.
Really?
It's a triangle that abuts Stoneham and Melrose.
Who knew? I used to live around there. Are any of the elements of Landrigan Field going to be addressed as the new high school is being built, or so is that a project that you'll be taking on, or is that really more something that will be part of the permanent building committee issues and the high school?
It's not part of the high school project. I don't think they're making any improvements over there.
Okay.
So they're doing the oval. I mean, they're gonna flip flop the location of the oval, but that's about it.
I guess my concern was Landrigan was updated not too long ago, right? Why are there any ADA incompliances there?
So it's been designed. I have a plan for it. It just hasn't been funded. That's the issue.
Okay, so you had a plan for it from the get-go, but you just didn't get the money to do what was planned to do. Okay.
Right. And plus we didn't know what they were going to do with the high school, if there were any changes, because there are some changes to the roadway as well for where Hemlock will be located. So I want to get all of that fleshed out before we start investing any money there.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
We are happy to come back. If you would like, I mean, we can we make these edits. I know Bill has some additional updates for us. We have some comments from you all. And if you wanted to take some time, we can send you an updated report. And if you wanted to meet as a committee, you could do that. I'm happy to come back and get some feedback on a plan, maybe, if that, I want to give you enough time to, not feel like this is the only time that we meet.
So what kind of input are you looking from us? Because as Judy had mentioned, we've talked with Bill about some of the concerns. So it might be great if you send us the updated report, and then we all have an opportunity to review. We can comment just to ensure everything that we've previously discussed is at least in there, and then if we have anything else to add. But if you can be really specific as to where you want us to comment, we will certainly do that.
Okay, yes, I can. And I just want to give you all an opportunity to provide any sort of direction in that. So we can make those edits, ensure that Bill has given them all to us. And if we're happy to do that and send a new report, and you can just make sure we've gotten everything that you have said.
Lorna, you have a question?
Yeah, just curious as to when was the survey taken during the summer, and how was it, excuse me, how was it disseminated, and how many people responded?
Oh, you were going to ask me those questions. I have those quick facts for you, but I didn't have them up on my up in front of me. So we did a survey. It was for most of the summer. And we had some art. We had an article. We advertised it. Judy, I don't know if you wanted to offer some of the ways we tried to get folks to respond to it.
It was on the website. It was on social media. I was at farmers market. I went to a couple of board meetings to talk about it. A lot of different boards had it up on their websites.
Yep. So I think we had about almost 150 people responded. So kind of a small sample, but again, that along with other sorts of input is how, I think trying to do different ways to get people's opinion, ideas. The town also has gone through a very extensive master plan update process too, which kind of asks similar questions. So we didn't want to repeat what people have already been asked, so we're using the input that people gave through the master plan process too, because they talked about open space and people's needs around recreation as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were making the best use of people's time too. So we have input from that survey in spring, and we had in around April, we had a public workshop for this, but the master plan work, we also wanted to pull from that too. Still very current within the last year or two as they were drafting that vision for that as well.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we very much appreciate you taking the time to come and present this to us. And again, if you just send us your updates, we will absolutely review it again and let me know specifically where it is you want us to comment, and we will provide those comments.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your time this evening too.
Thank
Thanks.
you. The commission members will just please stay on. Does anybody, I don't really have a lot to go over. Bill, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss while you were here?
Well, just the other piece, I wrote you an email. So my little blurb on the MBTA communities last week. So there has been a change to the law, which will allow for a minimum of 10% affordable, which could also include, some type of accessible housing component. So that's something that I'm going to be meeting with Steve Mayo and Aaron Kokinda over the next couple of weeks to chat as they continue to refine that new zoning amendment. So obviously we discussed trying to incorporate the accessible housing. So I think this would be a good opportunity. So I'm going to work with them over the next couple of weeks to figure out a way to get it in, and I'll plan to report back to you folks next month on that.
Bill, was that a change in state law or local?
Yep, state law. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So I apparently wasn't up to date yet last week when I was presenting it to you. This kind of came through, but I wasn't notified.
I don't think I'm clear because I have to write it down. What was the change?
So originally, the communities were not allowed to incorporate or require any affordable component to the new housing stock that would be created. So they changed that to allow a minimum. You can have 10%. You can actually go all the way up to 20% if you can demonstrate a financial need for it. So I don't think we really hit that because we're close to our 10% for the town for affordable housing. So, but obviously, as you create new stock, you got to create more affordable stock as well to keep the balance correct. So they made that change to it, I want to say in September or so, but I hadn't heard about that. So I actually didn't even find out through Wakefield. I found out through some work I'm doing up here in Middleton. So so there you go. So that's some new information for us. So I'll obviously be advocating for it, and I'll plan to be back to you folks next month with an update.
So when you say accessible component, what exactly does that mean? Or when you say affordable component, what does that mean? I know the accessibility piece. So 10% of anything new that was built would have to be accessible for individuals who had physical challenges, correct?
Right, but I think the cognitive stuff that we've been talking about, there would be an opportunity for that because those also will count towards our 10% affordable component. That type of housing also counts towards affordability. So any house that is built, the town as a whole has to maintain 10% of its stock as affordable. So that means it's restricted with how much it can sell for. The max would be 80% of the annual the average housing inventory for the entire region. So it's more for like a regional thing that we look at. And so the town has we're basically right at that 10% or within a few, maybe 10, 15, 20 houses. So as soon as that stops, then all those 40Bs that have been coming through, they can't file any more 40Bs with the town. So what we do is we have what's called inclusionary zoning, which allows us to require, 18% for any new development, so that we kind of stay ahead of the curve as new development comes in. With this MBTA communities, there's a whole separate law that we have to implement and create, an additional, I believe it's about 14 or 1,500 units in the town. And they weren't allowing you to have any type of restrictions on it. It has to just be by right and can be constructed. So that's not the case. It's that they've decided to add in, and this is way after the fact from when they initially rolled out this new law to the communities, to allow that a 10% component to be included. So that's something that is big for us, because obviously if we weren't getting that, we would have had to come up with another, say, 150 to 200 affordable units somewhere in town, which it would be a burden for us to make happen. So kind of goes against all that work that we're doing to be proactive about creating affordable housing.
So the MBTA law now, which originally had no restrictions on the housing, is it now required that there's 10%, or is it allowable?
Allowable.
Okay.
So we want to have that happen. So I think that's something we want to be advocating for, and we want to have a percentage of that of the 10%. So say like 1% of those should be, some type of accessible unit would be my recommendation, something along that line.
So now you said sell, which to me means that the units, this 10% of affordable housing these would be units that are being sold like condos.
They could
correct?
Be sold as condos, and they can also be rentals as well. They can be both.
Okay, so then rentals would mean accessibility to the help me out, Paula, the Section 8 vouchers.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Bill, I'd like to know if you can kind of clarify some stuff that I think I had read it in the item, and I also had heard it from a few people when I was down at Wakefield 101, that that the MBTA set or the state set a certain amount of units that need to be underneath the MBTA thing.
Yeah.
And that Wakefield was going to go above and beyond whatever that number was.
Yeah, that's not happening anymore at this point. So
okay.
The public outreach that we've heard, everyone said we want to minimize it and, have less of an impact. So, my big concern is with the way that we write the zoning regulation is very, very important. I think I've said this to you folks before, but I did a lot of development before I came and started working in the municipal side of things. So, I don't want to say I know how to work around a regulation, but I understand the impacts of how you write stuff. So, what I was seeing is there was a potential for a lot of these like single family or duplex houses to be knocked down and much larger development be installed. So we don't want that to happen. So, I'm working with Steve and Aaron to make sure that we have a regulation that makes a lot of sense. We already have areas that are already built up, so those we don't have to create the housing. We have to allow it to be created. That's kind of the metric that we need to meet. So it's not necessarily a housing production requirement. It's just an ability to be able for it to be built by right, though. So by right means that you don't go in for a variance. You can do a site plan review just to demonstrate that you're meeting all the different standards that are in the zoning bylaw, but you have to allow folks basically to get a building permit pretty quickly. So that's what the requirement is. So that doesn't mean we have to create it. So that if that kind of clarifies some of them.
And I think go ahead.
When the last time that you spoke, you were saying something about, we already have some density towards what they're looking for. And that I also said that you're focusing more around North Ave access to the commuter rail, when you actually have, the bus that comes straight down Main Street to Pleasant Street down to Main Street. And why can't some of that, which there's some of them are dense populations like Richardson Street and Richardson Ave and all those streets, the Bennett Street and everything else, why aren't they being included in the count?
They were originally, and then, so there's another committee that's working on this, and then they made different recommendations. So we've looked at that as an opportunity. One of the other tweaks that they made, besides just the affordability piece, is that you could do mixed use as well. So mixed use meaning you can have, retail on the first floor and then residential above. Originally that wasn't allowed. So there's other opportunities that could change and make those areas more of a fit for where we decide to put the stock.
And technically, if you're looking for affordability, the commuter rail is far less affordable than the bus.
I know that, but that's
it's nonsensical.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with sensibility in this whole process. To be honest with you, it's a very strange mandate that a lot of communities are struggling with. So. But we're required to have a certain percentage of it within, a certain radius of the train station. That's a requirement as well. So the biggest area has to be there, but then we can have satellite zoned areas that are about a minimum of 5 acres large. So there's ways to get around it, and that's kind of what we're looking at.
And it's both train stations, right?
It would be both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they didn't really think it made a lot of sense down in Greenwood at the time when they were doing the analysis. To me, I think there's a few spots down there too that would make sense. So
they did build some houses across from Greenwood that are multiple unit houses, but there's no space to build anything else over there.
Well, I mean, kind of think about what is it, 2000? Is it 2000 Main Street? Somewhere down there, there was a development for.
Yep, that bigger.
Yeah,
looks like the prison block.
Yeah, it was 20 units back in the day. So that's something that's still in there. But again, if they're already created, those are good locations to put the zoning too, because we know it's already been built. No one's knocking down a brand new building to put more in, and if we already have a higher density there, that really makes sense. So like I look at Foundry as a great example where we already have some density being built. We want stuff to be built there anyway, so we should definitely be using that as part of this. That would eliminate it kind of going into more of those downtown neighborhoods that have. I think a lot of character and the way they're currently constituted. I don't think we want to be futzing around with them too much. So
are any of those Foundry area buildings with those giant new apartments, are any of those affordable, or they were?
Yeah, yep, 18%.
Oh, they are.
In those developments, they all had to be include affordability. Yeah.
So you're saying the overlay is going to be looking at both North Ave and Greenwood stations, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they haven't included Greenwood at this point. So
they haven't. Okay.
And now we have the minimizing, from the public outreach and that they've done. They've had a few public meetings, and then they met with the council as well. So between those meetings, they ended up with with some pretty clear feedback to minimize this and not expand it any more than it should be. So I think that'll be the way this goes. So that's why we're kind of looking at different areas right now.
Okay. And the other word I want to introduce as we're advocating is supportive housing.
That's the word. Okay.
Okay. Support. I'll give you some more detail. I don't have my notes in front of me, but so it's housing, but it's also services.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
No, we had talked about it. I just wasn't sure what the term was. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And like I think I talked last time about a few of the town-owned land pieces that we're looking to sell off. That would be opportunities there. So we're definitely talking about those as well, and that hasn't gone away.
Are you looking for anybody? Like, I would love to hear Marie speak at one of those meetings and talk about what the needs are. For hear folks that have or know of or have children who have or adults in their lives who need variations in housing, and talk about how if you build it, we're going to fill it for you. And Paula certainly knows so much about the housing needs and how to get people into housing and who's looking for housing.
Right.
And the real variations, I love the creative supportive housing. And you had talked about it before, Bill, about being creative. And Marie and Lorna talked about being creative in the way in which we come up with different housing options. So I think if you built a unit that is kind of dormitory-like with a bunch of bedrooms and common spaces, that's not going to prevent anybody from living there. It's going to be open to lots of different folks, but it will create opportunities for people to live more independently. So
like, I think that when we were talking last week, I think like the Herd School is a good example of that one. That would work, where it could be a section of that that when the school's redeveloped into whatever they decide to do there. I'm assuming they would keep the building and then kind of retrofit, but that would be one that makes sense to me.
Right. And the thing, Janice, is for individuals like my son, if he is going to continue to get services, the Department of Developmental Services, living independently or somewhat independently, there are restrictions.
Yeah.
They can only be so many individuals like that congregating in a space. Otherwise, they have to be half a mile apart or whatever the requirements is. So the space we would be looking at would have to truly be inclusionary, right? It would be, folks that have physical challenges, folks that have, intellectual and developmental disabilities, IDD. When we're talking about that dormitory situation, maybe we want to be reaching out to young adults who might be interested in living in an environment like that, that might also be willing to serve as like an RA, like you have at a college, right? That would be the individuals providing to support those that are needed.
Right.
And we also want seniors, because seniors need very much similar support that, right, these other folks need, whether, assistance, transportation services, right?
And the benefit of congregate living with other people who can pitch in and help. It's like, that's how I want to live. It's just and I think about a colleague of mine who, when her son turned 22, he has very high level disabilities. She had to leave work. She could no longer, because there was no option for a place for him to live. Right. And he had no intellectual disabilities, but he had his ataxia telangiectasia, which is very rare, and he was losing all mobility, and was going to need. But he was a 22-year-old young man who didn't want to live. He wanted to live with other young people, and they're just
sure.
And there are no options. There literally were no options. So that's the kind of thing that there are so many different types of needs that addressing as many as possible would be lovely.
And Bill, I'm being told, I think it's Medway State Hospital, Medway or Medfield had a state hospital that they are converting into housing. And it's my understanding that this type of supportive housing is being pushed for that development.
Cool.
A friend of mine is an architect, and she's kind of got her finger on the pulse there. So
yeah, if she has any information, feel free to forward it over, because that would always me whatever. But I'm thinking now at this point, because my recommendation last week was not to really have them come in, because we didn't have any ability to really advocate. But at this point, I think we do. So I'll be reaching out to those folks too, to come back to us here and have a dialogue on what they're looking to do. And I think there's a good opportunity here to kind of hit this goal that we've been shooting for. So I think we should be able to make that work.
And Paula, Lorna, and I were able to talk a little bit about this when we were at Wakefield 101 the other night. And there's a woman, I mentioned her before in Winchester, Kathy Boyle, who has her finger on the pulse with all of this. And if anyone's going to present, she's going to be the one that will present, because she is just the person, and she is the one that's involved in this Medfield State Hospital.
Okay.
And we may have to pay her a consulting fee, and we know Paula and I have talked about it, so I'm going to reach out to her to find out some details. And obviously the commission has money, and if that's what we decide we want to do, then I would recommend that we at some point vote to expend some of that funds for her to come so that she can, you know, clearly articulate to those who are going to have to implement this what we're talking about. She knows the whole DDS issue and the requirements and what will and will not be allowed.
Why don't we plan, instead of having the presentation here, because I'm thinking I would have the folks that are doing the new MBTA housing come to the commission and let you all have an opportunity to advocate for it. And if we could maybe catch up with her, Marie, maybe you and I do, just to keep it moving at a faster pace. You know, and I have money as well. So I have transition plan money still around. So I definitely have funds that I can expend as well. So maybe we can do it that way to try to get this moving a lot faster, because they're not going to have it, you know, we're going to be bringing this to Springtown meeting. So we would need to be acting pretty quickly on this.
Bill, who did you say that you're going to reach out to when you say you're going to reach out to the folks? I'm not really sure which folks.
Oh, yes. So there's a committee for the MBTA housing, and so it's a member of the planning board, Jim Hogan, and it is Aaron has been helping him with his presentation. So they've been doing sort of their dog and pony show to everybody. They go through all the different boards. So it would definitely make sense for them to come here at this point. Like I was saying last week, I was thinking, well, if we don't have an opportunity, we really can't, you know, we would just be requesting something that they can't actually do. It didn't make sense for them to come to the commission, but obviously with this kind of change in the law, that allows us to actually, you know, have an opportunity to advocate. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to make are you going to make arrangements for them to come?
I will, yeah.
To our meeting?
I think what we'll do for action items, maybe Marie, you and I catch up with I forgot your friend's name, but
Kathy Boyle, and I'd like Paula in because Paula is the commission's representative on this housing trust thing.
Perfect.
So
sounds good.
I want her to be apprised of everything.
Awesome.
So we need to connect. All right. So all right, let's go with the action items then. Go ahead.
Yep. So we'll do that first, and then what we'll plan to do is to try to write a memo to the committee requesting this. But I think what we would do is try to have them in for the December meeting for a presentation to talk about what they're doing, where they're looking to do this, and then we can discuss. But I'll brief them so they'll be prepared for everything. But
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's see if we can make this happen.
Yeah, we have to at least put the bee in the bonnet so that people are aware of these other options of housing, right? It's not just.
Also, I think it's a great idea to invite Kathy Boyle to be part of this group because she's such a leader in the field. That's a brilliant idea. Thank you for the suggestion.
And then another opportunity will be the Affordable Housing Trust. So we are creating an Affordable Housing Trust that will have their own funding to do certain things. I'm actually on one up here in Middleton. And we're talking about all of the same stuff. So they should be as well. And you should be advocating with those folks when that starts. So we'll get you in touch as stuff starts moving.
So Wakefield's creating an Affordable Housing Trust?
Yeah, I got voted in at the last town meeting.
Oh, cool.
Right, and Paula is the representative for the commission.
Oh, okay.
Janice, just for you.
Oh, that's what she's on. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's definitely a spot to advocate, and that's something we're doing it up here. We've been talking about it and looking how we would implement, some similar type of housing. So I can't see why Wakefield shouldn't be doing the same.
Okay, so just clarify the action items for me again, please.
Right, so we're gonna have a meeting with Ms. Boyle, right? And then,
okay.
All right, and then we're gonna have the committee come and present here to the commission on what their plan is. At that point, we'd be prepared to advocate for a percentage of any of the affordable housing to be to be the specialized housing we're looking for, right? And then what we would do is craft a letter to the rest of the committee, because I think it's only one member that will be presenting. So it's Aaron and Jim that come around and present. So you'd be writing a letter to those folks, you know, kind of summarizing what you're looking for.
Okay.
And then I will, you know, provided that all works and everybody agrees, which I would hope they would, then obviously I'll be looking to craft some type of language into the new bylaw that requires the housing to be built with any development.
Okay, sounds like a
And
plan.
Bill, the new, just so that I'm clear, the new bylaw, Wakefield bylaw,
Yep.
will be coming under, is it a zoning bylaw?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, new zoning bylaw. And can you describe the new zoning bylaw for
The MBTA communities.
MBTA communities?
Yeah. It's I think it's called the MBTA 3A zoning or something like that. But I can get that name for you, Janice, if that helps.
And then that bylaw would have to be voted on at Springtown meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, and 2/3 vote. So we need 2/3 of folks to approve it. I mean, it is pretty critical for us to do it because we get a lot of grants. If we don't vote it in, we don't get these grants, and we're typically sitting around close to $1 million a year that I get alone between myself and Aaron. Shouldn't say just me. Aaron and I both do it, but
Did you say it has to be a 2/3 vote?
yeah, 2/3 for a zoning bylaw. Yeah.
Dan, we'll have to get them out there. We'll have to bust them in.
Bring the troops. Bring the
Harry
troops.
out of Water Street and Main Street.
Yeah, that's it. So that's what I have. So kind of interesting development that kind of changes how we want to handle this. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You must have been listening to us.
I do. I listen to you guys.
You do.
Well, the MBTA was listening to us. We know you listen.
I think they were getting they got so many complaints on not allowing affordable.
Oh
housing.
yeah.
It's just such a problem. What it would do is it would open up every community to start having 40Bs, and even if you've done all the work that you're supposed to. I mean, that's just doesn't make a ton of sense. So, you know, Wakefield's been pretty proactive. So it's unfortunate if they didn't include it.
With the parting gift to our parting donor.
All right. That's it. Is there anything else for me, folks?
Can I ask one question?
You certainly can.
Handicap wheelchair swing.
Yes.
Any on that?
Yeah, they think it's supposed to be done during one of the vacations, I believe. So I'm assuming Christmas would be the one.
And it could be at Walton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we were up there and we didn't see anything. I did see that specialized surface though, which looks kind of nice. And with the speckled green, it almost looks like grass.
Yeah, how about that, right? I think
that
they definitely don't have a lot of that up there, right? With all the trees.
That replaced the very first surface that we put in when my kids were like 5. They're 30 now.
Yeah, we need to be doing those. I mean, that's you know, kind of accessibility thing for all.
It was a big push. So we had a child in a wheelchair who was coming into the school the next year, and I think I told you that story. As we were physically building the playground, we just finished it. She came plowing onto the playground, zipping up to one of the guys that we'd been up all night building it. We were covered with this tar stuff that you laid that you could not get off your hands. She zipped up to somebody and she said, "Thanks for building a playground that I can go on. I just had to watch last year." And then she zipped away, like tears in his eyes. The guy said, "Totally worth it. Totally worth it." It took an extra 1.5 years of fundraising to do it. Everybody else's playgrounds were going up, and we put in one with an artificial surface and a ramp. I don't think the ramp is there anymore, though, is there? There's no. I think they took down the old equipment.
They would have. Yeah, they would.
Yeah, so that had the big, beautiful ramp with the accessible play spaces up there, and I don't think that's there anymore. So I think they made it less accessible.
Well, that's not a good thing.
No, I would say no.
But I'll double check into it, Dan. You know, to be honest with you, I haven't been plugged in as they've been moving it forward, so I'll chime back in.
Pardon me, Lois, but we're going to keep kicking that can.
No, we don't want to keep the can. We want to actually do stuff. So, you know, that's
we want to check the box.
Yeah. So just
you've done a lot in 2 years, believe me.
In this transition plan, they did include all the surfaces at everyone. I mean, they were a little wishy-washy, I think, on the play structures themselves, but that's something we can comment on and make sure it gets in there. So
Perfect.
I think that makes a
I
ton of
think it'd
sense.
be really nice that once it's actually set up and everything else, that there is some publicity about it being there, so that other children that may be in the, in the town actually have access to it too.
Oh yeah,
it's a great point. Yeah,
because you're not going to come across Walton Playground.
No.
I literally couldn't
it's
find
really
the
tucked
school.
away.
No, I couldn't find the school when I was going to register my kids. I'm driving around going, where the heck is this school? You have to find it.
Yeah.
And
you do.
it is tucked away. But once you get there, it's a great little
same
space.
Yeah, same thing when I started here. I couldn't find it. I was going for a meeting and I'm like, where is this thing? So, well, what you gonna do?
It's on Davidson Road.
I know. Says Ms. Davidson Conley. I like it. That's good. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, don't hesitate to hit me up, and we'll have updates next month for you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. As usual, you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, folks.
Good night.
See you. Good night.
Okay, so does anybody have anything else? Because I'm good. We can review the minutes prior to the next meeting. Looks like December we're going to have another presentation. So
they've been great.
So is the next meeting the December one?
Yeah.
Is the date December 6th, if I recall? Make that up?
4th.
December 4th.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really interesting news that the affordability piece got put in there. And it's great that we have Bill who's going to advocate. I think he's got a learning curve there. So as do I, bringing in
we all do,
bringing in folks to just get seat right at the table from the beginning, because we kind of have sometimes that doesn't happen. And I think that when we are in right from the groundwork, it's in really getting your ideas in there and, really getting the language in there, I think will be really important. So yay. This is awesome.
Let's keep your fingers crossed we can get the people we need to the table.
I think we're lucky we got Aaron and we got Jim Hogan from the planning board. Very good on all those issues.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, anybody with anything else?
Just one thing. I know you were at 101, but Lois and I were at the senior center. I had a fair about a week and a half ago, and we were at that, and we gave out those yellow disability booklets, and we had quite a few people that liked those. But yeah, it was upstairs and downstairs. But I was with the veterans group. Lois was with the disability, so we were represented anyway. So
that was a fair at the senior center?
I think it was October 25th.
Okay.
It was upstairs and downstairs. They had quite a bit of stuff there.
Thank you for doing that and representing us. And I don't know, Lorna and Paula, you were there longer than I at Wakefield 101. And I know Lorna had a very nice conversation with a woman. She was not hearing impaired, but she signed because she was raised by a mom, right, Lorna, who was hearing impaired?
Yeah.
And
her mom was deaf. Pardon me for correcting you on the hearing
impaired.
Sorry,
I know. Sorry.
Yeah, her mom was deaf. Her dad was hearing, but she grew up learning ASL and using it. So yeah.
And then who else did you folks run into? Anyone else?
Not really. I mean, I did go out and peruse around, but talk to a few people. But
was the event well attended?
It was. I mean, it was not, of course, not as large as it was last year, because last year it took in 3 years of not having it. So, but I thought that, considering, I think I asked somebody somewhere along the line how many new people had moved in a year's time, and it was like 170. So considering that, if that's the case, it was well attended. Certainly not by 170 people, but or
I think they said
170
40 or
households.
50.
But
yeah,
pardon me.
40 or 50, I think, is what I was told in an email.
40
had registered. So whether you
registered, yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's probably about half of that 170. Or
Well,
can't
plus
believe there's 170 houses that left that sold. But
I'm sorry, Dean, what was that you cut out?
on a Thursday, a weekday, so that might have,
Right.
because the fair at the senior center was on a Wednesday morning, and we had probably 60 or 70 people upstairs and downstairs. But again, it was the timing.
Well, I think a Thursday evening, I mean, most of it talking about these are young couples that are coming through and probably don't get out of work in order to, even having it at 6 o'clock is probably, early for some people anyhow. But I thought that considering how many people had signed up, I would say there was probably just about that many people that had gone through. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah. Probably 40 or 50 people. Mostly younger people, a couple of retirees. I know the scholarship committee was next to us, and they commented that it was either, retirees or really young couples and not a lot in the middle. And, I think we were there, and if nothing else, just raising awareness that we exist and that we're here and that, we're a resource should people need us. They might not need us at that moment, but that we're here.
Right.
Right. And the Representative Wong was there. Kate Lipper-Garabedian was there. Chief of Police was there. Those are the few that I chatted with. So.
And it would be nice if next year we could have a table all to ourselves so we can put our banner.
I know.
Because I looked around, it was those that had banners up, that really, that they stood out,
Well, remind me to register us next year. Although, I feel like I did. I went back through the emails and or maybe I was waiting for someone to respond that they could do it. And then I just forgot to register us. I don't know, but yeah, just remind me now.
Yeah, we did fine. We did fine.
We were there. That's all that counts.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if no one has anything else, I want to wish you all
happy Thanksgiving, right?
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, exactly. Because we'll be seeing you shortly after that. And
I will get 3 sets of minutes out to folks. I think I don't have the one from the meeting that I missed, so I don't know who took.
That was Paula. She's working those.
Thank
so
you, Paula.
Yep, we will have them all ready by the time we next meet. And
so many things to read. And I love it when people actually read through, because sometimes I make just very clear mistakes that I clearly did not see. So please feel free to just email me if you see anything that's in there that doesn't make sense, or it's just the wrong word. That can happen.
We will do that.
Excellent.
My veterans hat on, just to remind everybody, at 11 a.m. this coming Saturday, Veterans Day service at Galvin. I wish you
Friday, right?
Yeah. No. Well, Veterans Day actually is on the 11th, which is Saturday,
yes.
but
11/11.
Friday off. Yeah, 11/11. 11/11 at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, some have Friday off. Okay, with that, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, it's 8:15 exactly, and we will adjourn today's Commission on Disabilities meeting, and we'll see you all on the 4th. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Meeting. Thank you so much.
A quick one. I think I had told Marie about the state was trying to up the price of a handicap ticket to $450 maximum. I think it's $350 now, but that's a bill that's in the Senate or the House.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and Janice, would you notate that? Because that's something we want to discuss at a, you know, maybe after the first of the year, because we did talk about increasing the tickets in Wakefield and it didn't go anywhere. But now that we know the state's going to push for an increase, we should, yeah, we should try to do something. You know, we don't have to go to $400, but we could certainly increase it from, what is it, 125 now here?
And
Just
that's up.
Incredible that we haven't collected, that no one's parking in our handicap spots all these years. Is that
just not happen? Well, you know, why don't we have invite the chief of police or somebody to come to our meeting and say, we understand you want to be user friendly and you want to be, you know, not busting people in Wakefield, but we want you to. So it's because it's not okay to be misparking in that way.
Well,
so
we have a parking person now, someone who's dedicated to that. And I have reached out to them once already. Let's just say they weren't real receptive to this conversation, but we're going to have to push the issue.
Just say that we would like you to come to our meeting.
Yeah.
We are requesting that you come to our meeting so we can talk about what the process is. We'd like to hear about the process. And I don't think they can say no, can they?
We'll soon find out.
We'll make them an offer they can't refuse.
Donuts on North Avenue, and we could get handicap parking tickets right there.
Mm-hmm. And if Dan, if you happen to know what the bill number is on that,
I think, I don't know if I told Maria.
You sent me something, so it was either a text or an email. I will find it, and
that would be great. Yeah, then we can put that in the minutes.
You know, the state house read through and says how people voted yes or no on it. I think this is just the bill that's going in there. It'll probably get stuck in the house on tabled, and then it just goes.
Right. Was it in the item, Dan?
Yeah, it was in the item.
All right.
You know where they have that little blurb under the editorials?
Yeah, and it says how people voted.
About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. All right. I still have all my papers. I'll take a look through them.
I'll try to find it for you too.
Awesome. Thank you. That would be great. All right, so we're re-adjourning now at 8:19. I keep changing the time.
Okay. All right, I'll hurry and disconnect us so we don't have to talk anymore.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.